Welcome to Inside the 12. He is the Hooper, King McClure, former Baylor great. I'm Pete Souza. We are here to get you caught up on all things Big 12 basketball. Only a couple more games to go in the regular season, King. Where has all the time gone, man?
Man, I've realized as you get older, the time goes by quicker. And even though I'm not that old, Pete, I'm learning this lesson very, very fast. Faster than I would like to learn it.
It's like sands through the hourglass, right, man? All right, Ann O'Neill is going to join us to break down a huge regular season finale on the women's side. But we're going to start with some headlines in men's hoops. Number 4, Houston went into Lubbock on Monday night in a game you had to see, right? They took on 10th-ranked Texas Tech, and they left with at least a share of the regular season title. The Cougars were able to avenge their only loss in conference play. How'd they do it, King?
How good has Milos Uzan been, especially in the last 3 games? 3 for 4 from the three-point line. I mean, in the last 3 games, shooting over 60% from behind the arc. This young man is absolutely phenomenal, and he's provided such a spark for Houston on the offensive side of things.
I don't want to get too down the Milos Uzan rabbit hole, but how much better has he gotten since coming over to Houston from Oklahoma?
Man, it's honestly tremendous to be able to watch this. And when you talk to Kelvin Sampson, and at the beginning of the season, when he first got there, he had to learn how to be a Houston point guard. When you think about it, Jamal Shedd was born and raised in that program. He was a freshman learning from guys like Marcus Sasser, learning from the other greats that we see Houston point guards. But Uzan got tossed into the fire immediately and had to have there was a huge learning curve right there. But the way that he is played and the way that he's starting to come into his own, especially on the offensive side, the biggest transition that you have to make when you're a Houston point guard is defensively.
Yeah.
You have to understand how they want to be played on the defensive side. But offensively, he's starting to really come into his own, and this Houston team has gone to the next level.
Yeah, you mentioned it offensively. Emmanuel Sharp, L.J. Cryer, right?
Man.
They're looking pretty good alongside
great.
Milos Uzan. Now, let's take a look at some of the conference standings right now. Reminder, the top 4 teams get a bye all the way to the quarterfinals of the Phillips 66 Big 12 men's basketball tournament. Houston, 16-1 in conference play. Big 12 regular season champs for the 2nd straight year. Arizona can't catch them if things get a little upside down. Remaining games at Iowa State. That's going to be a huge one. Arizona State and at Kansas. Now, Iowa State and BYU, they play on March 4th. Seeding implications are there. How do you break down what's going on at the top of the standings? BYU, I know you like them.
Yeah, you expected to see you at the top 4. You expected the Iowa States, the Texas Techs, the Houstons, Arizona. You expected that. But nobody expected BYU to be here. And how good of a job has Kevin Young done in year 1? I mean, they had their flashes this season where you saw the potential, you saw what they could be, but you also saw them lose a few that they probably shouldn't have lost. But when you look at Richie Saunders, I am a huge fan, and I'll go ahead and say it here first. I think you will see this young man in the NBA. I think he has potential to be in the NBA at 6'6", the way he can shoot the ball, the way he plays with a chip on his shoulder. Do not be surprised, people, if you see Richie Saunders on an NBA roster in the next year or 2.
Hold on. I don't want to shut you down because you're getting lathered up, but we got more time to talk about Richie Saunders. That's coming up in our next segment. How about other Big 12 news? Arizona picked up an 88-63 win. That was on Wednesday night over Utah. That was the first game since the Utes fired head coach Craig Smith. You got Josh Eilert filling in for him on an interim level. Craig Smith, 65-62 over 4 seasons, 15-12 this year. It's been an interesting situation for them.
Yeah, most definitely. When you watch that game, it was almost kind of weird. I felt the timing of everything was weird. Pete, you were there on the call. What is the latest from Utah, and what are you hearing? What's the buzz around this program?
I mean, it was for the guys on the team, it's kind of like a raw nerve right now. I mean, they all went there to play for Craig Smith. Gabe Madsen was his very first recruit, so there's an emotional vibe around this team right now. You can tell the way they're playing, but unfortunately, I don't care how much emotion you have, you take that into McHale where they hadn't won in 13 attempts. They hadn't won there since 1986. So you suffer a loss against Arizona, but now where does Utah go from here? We'll find out sooner than later. Rumors out of there and some really good reporting. It's being done in Salt Lake. Alex Jensen is a guy who played for Rick Majerus. He's a possible replacement right there. I know you like Kevin Young. Maybe Utah's looking for the same kind of NBA vibe that he has implemented out there in BYU. So Andre Miller is another name that's being kicked around.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah, that's a big one. But right now for the Utes, they still believe, right, with 3 games left, that they can make some noise. So for them, it's next game up, and that is tomorrow at Arizona State. Now, the team's hoping to secure a spot in the NCAA tournament. picked up much-needed wins this week. I switch it to you now. You were there for Cincinnati beating Baylor 69-67 in a game that went back and forth. What did you take from that one?
Well, first off, that was a high-level game. That was a high-level matchup, and it's two teams, honestly, going the opposite directions. When you look at Cincinnati, they are trending up. They're trending the right way, trying to fight their way back into the NCAA tournament. But when you look at this Baylor team, they're honestly trending down. They are trending in the wrong direction, slowly working their way out of it. They're still in it as of today. However, in their next 3 games, you have to win at least 2 out of 3 when you play Oklahoma State, TCU, and then you have Houston to end the season with. If you drop one to TCU or Oklahoma State, Baylor, you might be in trouble.
I feel like that game on Saturday against Oklahoma, that's a must-win.
That's a must-win.
You cannot lose that game at home.
You have to win that one, and you have to go to TCU and beat TCU. And you remember earlier, TCU got the best of them in Waco. So now you're going to TCU's crib. And one thing I know by being there, TCU, they don't like us too much. The Horned Frogs, they're not huge fans of us Baylor Bears. So when you go in there, that would be a hostile environment because TCU is still a team that is hoping to make the tournament, hoping to make a run in the Big 12 tournament to allow them to make it to the big dance. So they are going to fight for their lives. And on their home court, they just beat Texas Tech. So that's a dangerous game next Tuesday, which I will be on the call for. But that's a dangerous game for Baylor going into Fort Worth.
You mentioned TCU. West Virginia got a huge win over them, 73-55. A monster game by Javon Small. What do you have West Virginia doing here as we come down the stretch?
Well, they have a tough one against BYU this Saturday, which I'll be on the call for that one as well. And they have a lot to prove, in my opinion. Like, they're still in the tournament, but when you look at them offensively, they are not that great. They struggle outside of Javon Small, and Javon Small has to do so much. And if he is not performing, if he isn't cooking, if he is not rolling, West Virginia's not winning.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing I will say is defense travels. Their defense has always been solid, and that's remained constant this whole season. So defensively, they're great. Offensively, they need more answers, especially coming down to the most crucial, pivotal time of the year in March. They need more answers offensively.
I like how you promote your games here. This is like King's personal social media, right? I like it. I'll be there. All right, we are just getting started here inside the 12. The race for the Big 12 Men's Player of the Year is heating up. We're going to take a look at some of the top contenders with only 3 games to go when we get back. Welcome back to Inside the 12. He is King McClure. I'm Pete Souza, and now we're talking about Big 12 Player of the Year. Right now, it's really a too close to call race. Let's check out some of the top performers this season, folks who are in contention right now. You got to start at Texas Tech. JT Toppin has been lights out all year long, averaging 17 points a game, shooting 56% from the floor, and averaging just about 10 rebounds, King. How much do you love JT Toppin's game, and do you think he could be Player of the Year? Yeah,
I think he has as good of a chance as anybody in the country, especially when you look at his performances down the stretch. There was a moment where this young man was averaging about 30-plus in 2-3 games. This man is Mr. Consistent. He has been phenomenal. When Texas Tech needs a bucket, they know who to go to. And it's crazy because you know what he does. You know he wants to get to the right shoulder. You know he wants to finish with his left hand. And he finds ways to continuously get to it. But I think where he's added the most to his game is his counter. So now teams try to take it away. Now he gets to his right hand. And his touch with the right hand or the left hand has been extremely impressive. And the crazy thing is, Pete, this young man is only a sophomore. How much better can he get? So I definitely think he's in contention. He has a great chance. But moving forward next year, people better be on the lookout.
We have all been on the lookout for Javon Small. He's been playing big all year long for West Virginia, averaging 18.5 points. That's second in the Big 12, shooting 42% from the floor, about 4 rebounds a game, and almost 6 assists. That's fourth in the Big 12. Don't forget about the 2 steals. What do you like about him, King?
I like everything about this young man. I have been on the fortunate end to do his game against Iowa State at West Virginia at home when they pulled out the upset, and his game at Baylor. And those were 2 of his better performances, where I was literally in awe on the broadcast being like, wow, no, he didn't just do that. No way he made that shot. I mean, this young man right here, the poise that he plays with at all times. We talked about earlier how this West Virginia team offensively, they rely on him so much. But the crazy part is, everybody knows that he is the guy. He's the go-to guy, but they can't stop him.
Yeah.
It's so hard to be able to limit him, and Coach DeVries does a tremendous job putting him in actions and putting him in sets to be able to succeed. But his ability not only to score the ball, but when he's not scoring it, he can set his teammates up. He can find his teammates, and he can put them in positions also to succeed with his passing. I mean, I think that those two elements right there put him in contention. However, they haven't won enough games. So I don't know if he has a chance to win it, but his numbers, his production, you can put him up there.
You bring up a great point. Talking to coaches around the conference, it's one thing to be at the top of the scouting report in the NCAA in Division I basketball. It's another thing to be at the top of the scouting report in the Big 12.
Yes.
They will do everything in their power to eliminate you, and most of the time they will. Norshad Omier for Baylor. The Bears right now 16-12. He's a double-double every night, and he's averaging about 16 points a game, 56% from the floor, 10.5 rebounds, a block a game, almost a steal and a half, and he's got more rebounds and double-doubles than any active player in the NCAA. I think he's underrated too, man. I think he's underappreciated.
We can't forget, let's not get this twisted. Norchad Omier led that Miami team to a Final Four. This is one of the best, most productive players, consistent players that we have seen in our game in the past 2-3 years. Matter of fact, since he's been in college, he's averaged a double-double. He is a grown man in every sense of the word. He got engaged, and now on the court, he dominates you. It's every single night, you know what you're going to get. You cannot simply just block out, right? You can't have a regular blockout for a guy like him. At Baylor, we had this thing called a KO, right?
Yeah.
It means you got to knock the guy out. Not literally, but in the sense of like, you have to make sure that he can't touch the basketball. He touches the basketball every single time. As hard as he plays, you have to respect it, and he's starting to score the ball better. You know, he's been put up for a tough task, moving to that 5 spot only at 6'6", but I think he's doing a really good job, and one thing you never have to worry about is his rebounding, because that never sways. But that young man has been consistent since day one, and he's been impressive.
I had a chance to talk to him this year. I said, what were you more nervous for, the Final Four, playing in Houston in front of 60,000 people, or getting engaged? He said, getting engaged. I was terrified. Oh, these dudes are just like us. How about this? Those guys could be considered front runners, but how about this? Eye test. Give me 2 sleepers, King McClure. Who you got?
Oh, LJ Cryer from Houston, who I really think has a legitimate chance to win this, because not only look at their record, but he's averaging 15 points per game, leading them. The performance he put up against Iowa State, super, super impressive. And then my man, Richie Rich Saunders. To have BYU in the top 5 and the way he's playing, I mean, this young man, oh my goodness, Pete. I'm a huge fan of Richie Rich Saunders.
Is he a prolific scorer, or is he a glue guy?
Well, you know what's interesting? He went from glue guy to prolific scorer. He went from bench player, guy who just hustles and plays hard, to now he's #1 on people's scouting reports.
Yeah.
Like, the ability to be able to do that and be successful at it, that's extremely hard and underrated. Richie Rich is that dude.
All right. Huge weekend ahead for women's hoops as number 10 TCU takes on number 17 Baylor. The Bears are white hot. That game is going to determine who's going to take home the regular season conference title. We've got Ann O'Neill warming up, set to join us. We're going to talk more about that matchup and more when we return. We are in the final week of what has been an incredible regular season of Big 12 women's hoops. The Phillips 66 Big 12 Women's Tournament tips off on Wednesday, March 5th, of course, from the T-Mobile Center in Kansas City. Looking at scores from this week's action, top-ranked teams are ready to go. Welcome back inside the 12. I'm Pete Souza. He is King McClure. We got a couple guests right here. We got some hardware. We'll get to that in a second. But more importantly, we have Big 12 Women's Insider, Ann O'Neill. Ann, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, so awesome to be here. I can't believe it's the final week of the season.
It's absolutely bananas. And we got this beautiful trophy here with us. And like I said, we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, this is the closest I've ever been to a Big 12 trophy. But it is what it is. You know what, and we have to start with West Virginia's huge win versus Utah. It was 75-46. That's about 29 points. How were they able to shut down Utah's high-powered offense?
Well, West Virginia, they do what they do. That's that stress Virginia defense, and they finished 16-0 at home this year. So the Mountaineers really put a stamp on it, but they held Utah to 31% shooting and turned them over 28 times. That is their foundation of what they're great at, but what they're also great at is having a senior guard in J.J. Quinterly, and she saved one of her best games of her entire career for that senior night. She had tied a school record 38 points in a game and was just on a heater. She was 16 for 21 from the floor, 4 of 5 from 3, and propelled West Virginia to a win. And I see their momentum continuing to grow as they go into the Big 12 tournament on both the offensive and defensive ends.
This season in women's basketball, we have seen so many prolific performances, right? Just big scoring nights. It's been so much fun to watch. We turn now to the big event, the women's regular season crown. This right here, this trophy, all comes down to the final conference game of the season. Number 10 TCU versus number 17 Baylor. That is this Sunday at 6:30 Eastern on FS1. Both of these teams 15-2. How'd they get here, Ann?
Well, this is the first time in Big 12 history that we're going to have a winner-take-all game on the last day of the regular season. Like you mentioned, both teams are 15-2, but man, have they done it well. And let's start with Baylor. They are on a 9-game win streak. Coach Collin has this team playing great team basketball, and it's the epitome of how you want your trajectory of a season to go, playing your best basketball when it matters the most. They have 5 players scoring in double figures, and they are led by the only women's basketball player in the Big 12 Conference to average a double-double in Dariana Littlepage-Buggs. She has 15 points and 10 rebounds a game. On the other side, you have TCU, and it's just been a historic year for the Horned Frogs. They have 27 wins. They shattered records left and right, including getting into the AP Top 10 for the first time ever in school history. They're led by a lot of elite players, seniors that can all make WNBA rosters this year, but we've got a big one coming up on Sunday.
How can TCU knock off Baylor for the second time this year?
Well, that first game was also historic. Over 35 years, they hadn't beat Baylor, and TCU took that one home 80-75. But they shot lights out, over 50% from the field and 60% from 3. Sedona Prince, the 6'7" center in the middle, she had 24 points and 14 rebounds. They're going to need to lean on her and that offensive firepower between her, Haley Van Lith, and Madison Connor to get the Horned Frogs another victory tonight.
I know I'm supposed to be unbiased, but I really want my Bears to pull this one off. So what do they have to do to flip the script on the Horned Frogs?
Well, the Bears, I feel like they need to lock in on defense and rebounding. They didn't shoot it that well from the 3. They were 8 for 26 from behind the arc. I'd love to see them also for offensively get some paint touches in the middle of the paint, get the ball into Arianette Vonleh and Dariana Littlepage-Buggs and put some pressure on Sedona Prince. So I think between locking in on defense, getting out on those TCU shooters, and then getting some paint touches early is going to be key for Baylor.
And again, I love Baylor's backcourt. Man. Sarah Andrews is unbelievable. Jada Walker, they certainly complement that front court real well. All right, the 2025 Phillips 66 Women's Basketball Tournament gets underway next Wednesday. Who should be on the lookout for a team to make a run?
Oh, geez, there's not enough time to go over all the teams that I think could possibly make a run. We have 7 teams that have 20-win seasons. We have 5 teams in the top 25 right now, but I'll give you 3 to start besides the ones we already mentioned. I'll start with number 21, Oklahoma State. They have offensive firepower everywhere. They're very similar to Baylor, where they have a lot of different players who can step up and score buckets. Second team I'm going to give you is Kansas State. They are the nation's leader in assists, over 24 assists per game, and they're going to have 6'6" center Ioka Lee back for that Big 12 tournament, and they're always good with that complementary inside and outside game. And then I got to give it up to Iowa State, the Cyclones. They always play well in Kansas City and are a tournament team. The last 4 or 5 games they've been playing really great team basketball, and the Cyclones love to bring a crowd to Kansas City and have a lot of fun there.
Well, she's a former All-American. She's a coach, and she's one of the best analysts in basketball all over the country. Thank you. It's the truth, Ann. Thank you so much for taking some time and joining us again today.
Thanks so much for having me here. Can't wait to see how it all unfolds next week.
Yeah, we are pumped as well. All right, we'll talk to you soon. And we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we're going to look to the weekend ahead in men's hoops. What to watch? More on Inside the 12 coming up next. welcome back to Inside the 12. I'm Pete Souza. He's the Big 12 great, King McClure. Tournament seedings on the line this weekend. Just 3 regular season games remain before the start of the 2025 Phillips 66 Big 12 Men's Basketball Tournament. That tips off Tuesday, March 11th. And of course, it's all going down at the T-Mobile Center in Kansas City. Limited tickets are still available, but you gotta hurry. Get yours today. And that brings us to What to Watch, which is, as always, presented by Children's Health. Number 10, Texas Tech at Kansas, 2 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. The Jayhawks are unranked for the first time since the 2020 season. King, can they change that in this game?
Yeah, they can. It's going to be a tough task, but they have to figure it out. And I still have hope for this Kansas team. Yes, it has not gone the way that they have wanted it to go, the way that they expected it to go, but we can't sleep on Bill Self. I mean, Bill Self is one of the greatest to ever do it, might be the greatest coach in the game of basketball. So no doubt in my mind, he will figure it out in these next 2-3 weeks in order for them to have success in March. And if he doesn't, I'm sure he's looking forward to next year because they have Darren Peterson coming in.
Yeah, they're going to be loaded again. All right, round 2. Iowa State and Arizona, number 22 Arizona and number 9 Iowa State. That's 9 p.m. on ESPN. Maybe the game of the year. You think back, Caleb Love hit that half-court shot and then scored 8 points in overtime for Arizona to come back against Iowa State. Can Iowa State exact revenge, King, at home in Ames?
100%, and that's exactly what I expect them to do for 2 reasons, Pete. Number 1, Iowa State just lost to Oklahoma State. That's a game you do not drop if you're TJ Otterberger, especially with the way you played against Houston last week. No way in the world you follow it up with that type of performance against Oklahoma State. Get the court rushed on you, so you know they have a chip on their shoulder already. That's number 1, Pete. Number 2, when you look at the way that the game went, Iowa State is supposed to win that game in Arizona. Caleb Love hits that crazy shot. Caleb Love then goes on and dominates in the second, well, not the second half, but the overtime, and makes 3 threes, right? So not only did you lose to Oklahoma State, but now it's a revenge game because Arizona took the game from you when you should have won that game. What are the odds of a dude hitting a almost 94 feet buzzer beater to send it to OT, right? So now it's twofold. They're playing with a chip on their shoulder. They're upset because they lost a game they should have won, 2 games they should have won. So no doubt in my mind that Iowa State is going to come out and the game is in Ames. Let's not get it twisted. That game is in Ames, people. Iowa State will win this game easily. They will get their revenge and fight back.
Hey, well, let me speak for Arizona here. Don't Tommy Lloyd and those dudes are going to go downhill. They play physical. Don't be surprised to see them get to the free throw line and keep it maybe a little closer than this guy thinks.
Nah, I would say easy. The Cyclone, look, the Cyclone, this is going to be an easy dub for the Cyclones. They are too motivated.
All right, that's all we got. We'll settle this next week. That's why they play the games. I love that. All right, for King McClure, I am Pete Souza. We will see you next week on Inside the 12.